As Spurs fans finally wave goodbye to cult hero Emerson Royal, rumours suggest that Tottenham are planning to replace him with a flying fullback from Monaco. Meanwhile, we've apparently been offered the chance to sign one of Crystal Palace's best ever players, and are Manchester City about to pay £70 million for Liverpool's goal-scoring Colombian? All this and more on today's episode of Daily Premier League Transfer News with me, Barnaby Slater. Once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate it. Press that like button, help get it up the algorithm and watched by more people. And if you're not a subscriber, please do press subscribe. Really appreciate it. And you can get daily content into your YouTube every single day from me. But let's get started, guys. As ever, with Tottenham, of course. And I didn't do a video yesterday, so I can now finally say that Emerson Royal has been confirmed as a Milan player. And as a result, Spurs have opened talks, apparently, with Vanderson from Monaco. And actually, they're talking with the club. Players already agreed terms, potentially. The French club, though, want an offer of €40 million. And I have to say, my personal opinion is for a backup fullback, I don't think Tottenham are likely to go that high. Let me know in the comments whether you think that's likely, but I don't think so. According to Ali Gold, he thinks that maybe reports of us signing a reserve fullback are actually a little wide of the mark at the moment because Ange Postecoglou is so impressed with Jed Spence's recovery and kind of narrative arc return to the Tottenham squad, and he wants him to stay and be part of the squad all season and be that kind of backup right back and left back. However, what do you think? I've watched Jed Spence in pre-season quite a lot, and he's played the last couple of games as left back. And certainly against Bayern Munich, there were so many times where he got caught kind of ball watching, and in behind him there were two players with possibilities to score. In fact, in the first half alone, Serge Gnabry probably could have scored 2 or 3 goals himself just at the back stick behind Jed Spence. So no shade on Jed Spence. It's very early for him in terms of getting used to Ange's style of play. And what he needs to do, especially at left back rather than right back, but he's certainly going to have to improve in terms of that defensive awareness, knowing where opposition players are around him. Meanwhile, some more rumours coming in. I think now that Spurs have got Solanke over the line, they were really concentrating on that striker. I think now they're really looking potentially at, can they get another wide forward in, and a kind of exciting acceleration-based dribbly winger. And as a result, just yesterday we've been linked with Simon Adingra from Brighton, very exciting Ivory Coast winger. I think that'll be a deal that's pretty hard to do considering the English club to English club tax. I don't think Brighton will be looking to sell, and obviously, as you know, I'm sure from the amount of money that Brighton have got selling players mostly to Chelsea and of course Liverpool as well, in terms of McAllister at Liverpool and Caicedo and the like at Chelsea, they're looking at upwards of £100 million for their big midfielders. So I think they'd be looking at a fee that Tottenham wouldn't be able to realistically pay for Adingra. Meanwhile, though, Tottenham also keen apparently on signing Valencia midfielder Andre Almeida. He is a kind of key part of the Valencia midfield, makes things tick. It does seem like Spurs, if they're going to buy more players this summer, it'll be about getting rid of the likes of Lo Celso, getting rid of the final players who aren't part of Ange's plans, and then seeing whether we can get either that wide forward or another central midfielder. As I mentioned at the top of the show, Spurs have been offered a chance to sign Galatasaray's Wilfried Zaha. Now this, for me, is agent talk. I just cannot see Spurs in their current transfer strategy going for a £31 million wide forward. I think he's been interesting Leicester on loan. I think Palace, again, have been looking at maybe getting him back for a third time. And I don't doubt the fact that maybe he's been offered to Spurs, but I do not see that as a transfer that is likely. As I mentioned before, it does seem like Ange Postecoglou is looking for another central midfielder, and it's probably worth mentioning at this point the rumour that's been going on the longest that we assumed had gone away because it looked like Conor Gallagher was going to sign for Atletico Madrid. He's been on the Atletico Madrid website having pictures taken around their stadium, but as of last night, he flew back to London to training with Chelsea because they've not been able to get that deal signed. The Omarodian deal to Chelsea from Atletico Madrid has broken down, and João Felix's deal potentially from Atletico to Chelsea hasn't been done yet. So without those deals kind of happening at the same time, Conor Gallagher cannot move permanently and sign his deal with Atletico Madrid, so he's back. So is it worth wondering whether Tottenham might have yet another sneaky attempt to get Conor Gallagher into the building? Aston Villa, I'm sure, will be sniffing around as well. But it does seem like Chelsea are mostly desperate to sell him abroad, surely, that deal will eventually get done to Atletico Madrid, and it's just kind of, I don't know what's going on. I guess dick measuring at this point between Atletico and Chelsea. Meanwhile, finally, Can announced that Mikey Moore has signed his first professional contract with the club. He did a great interview with the club's website. If you haven't watched that, make sure you do. Seems like a really grounded boy. He talks a lot about how important it is for him to keep his feet on the ground, and how this doesn't mean he's made it at all. It's just the first step. He said it's kind of mad for this to be my job now, and I think that's a really grounded, brilliant thing for him to say. I think he's going to get minutes in the Premier League. I think he'll be coming off the bench at first, but let's see what can happen. He's seems to mostly be playing him kind of on the right forward side when he comes on. But to me, everything I see of him seems like he's most suited to that kind of number 10 role. And maybe if Maddison got an injury, it would be between Moore and Kulusevski as to who might come in. As I mentioned, got to talk a bit more about Emerson Royale's final departure. Spurs did do a nice little tweet about it. They said the following: Spurs have reached an agreement with AC Milan for the transfer of Emerson Royale. The right-back joined the club in August 2021 from Barcelona. Can you imagine? Emerson Royale played for Barcelona. Actually, the boys Flav on the Fighting Cock said this, and it's so true. If you don't subscribe or follow the Fighting Cock podcast, make sure you do. It's really brilliant. But he said on it, the kind of player who's played for Barcelona and is Brazilian and yet comes to Spurs and is, no offence, Emerson Royale, but one of the least kind of Brazilian Barcelona-esque players ever. I think they described him on the Fighting Cock as a meat and potatoes fullback. And it's so true. Only Spurs could sign a player from Barcelona who plays for the Brazilian national side, and him be a meat and potatoes fullback. It was a brilliant quote from the Fighting Cock. Anyway, he made his debut the following month in a Premier League fixture against Crystal Palace. Emerson made a total of 101 appearances in our colours, scoring 4 goals, and in May 2024 reached the century milestone for the club when he featured for us against Liverpool at Anfield. The 25-year-old has 10 caps for Brazil after making his senior debut in November 2019. We wish Emerson all the best for the future. I certainly do. I hope he's played at Milan in just a standard back four where he's not expected to get past the halfway line, because he's a good defender. He knows what to do when players are coming at him. He's good in the air. He's a decent stopper. I hope he has a good career, and you've got to give him some credit. He spent a lot of money on having personal coaches come to his house and go through video footage of his performances and the performances of other fullbacks that he wanted to aspire to. And if every footballer had the kind of mindset of Emerson Royale at Spurs, then we would be in a very good place. He's a cult hero at the club. I think he did a decent job. He was just unfortunate in that he joined, I think, under Nuno when Nuno was the manager, and then Conte wanted him to play as a wing-back, which didn't suit him, and then obviously Big Ange wanted to play him as an inverted full-back, which also didn't suit him. So good luck to you, Emerson Royale. Speaking of full-backs who are not suited to Ange Postecoglou's style of play, don't have the attributes, Barcelona have made now a formal approach to sign Sergio Reguilon, apparently. His agent have confirmed that Barcelona are interested in signing his client. The left-back from Spurs is now their priority for the position after talks for João Cancelo have not progressed with Manchester City. Well, I like Sergio Reguilon. He doesn't suit Ange's style of play. He had a good kind of first year, 18 months at Spurs. If you remember, we were all worried that Real Madrid were going to take his the clause that they had with him where they had first dibs on signing him back. That's how well he started at the club. But his career has dropped off till then. And if he can get a move to Barcelona, fair play to him. I think Man City are looking for 20-25 million euros for João Cancelo. And I think they'd be able to pick up Sergio Reguilon for probably, maybe between 5 and 10 million euros realistically. If that, they might even be trying to get Spurs to cancel his contract, because they will have seen that Levy has cancelled a few contracts, and it's clear that Reguilon is not going to play for Spurs. So if you can get his move to Barcelona, I'd say fair play to you, Sergio Reguilon, and I hope you pick up your career, because it's been a disappointing kind of 18 months, 2 years for you. Dane Scarlett has joined Oxford United on loan. I think that's a good move for him. Just got to hope for Dane Scarlett now he gets proper minutes in the number 9 position. Because on this loan, he's had a few loans. On this loan, he really needs to be scoring a lot of goals. I think really, if he's going to have a future at Tottenham Hotspur, he needs to score 15 goals minimum on loan this season. Otherwise, with kind of Will Lancashire having overtaken him in the pecking order, and it looks very much like Lancashire might even get some bench minutes this season, certainly early in the season. Scarlett really needs to get back into proper men's senior football, score some goals, and show Big Ange Postecoglou and Tottenham's coaching side that he has what it takes to make it happen. Ange Postecoglou has done an interview with Men in Blazers, I think it was, and he has given some quotes. First of all, on what will be different about his Spurs team this season. He said this: "I think we'll have grown a lot from last year and gained an understanding of ourselves. When we were good, we were exciting and had everyone talking about us. But when we had to grind, there was a space in there where we didn't cope too well with disruptions, which I think is only natural, because when things are going well, it's a lot easier to stay on board with something. We had some disruptions in terms of injuries, suspensions, some lack of discipline there for sure, and we didn't cope well with that. But we learned a lot through it, so I think we're a better prepared squad this year than we were last year. I think that's fair enough. I think what he's really talking about there is the difference between the first 10 games of the season and then after that, when we had those suspensions and injuries after the Chelsea game. I think we lost 4 in a row. Then we did get some wins, but then towards the back end of the season, when some more injuries hit, we really struggled once again, didn't we? He was also asked what he feels that Spurs can achieve in the season ahead. Big Ange said this. He said, "When you walk around this place, to dare is to do is everywhere." I think that's a reference point for not only our mindset, but for our actions. And for us, that means playing the game a certain way. So that's what I want to do. And if we do manage to do that, there's no limit to what we can achieve. I came here to bring success to the club. Success means trophies, and that has to be our aim. Now, surely that must be like, medicine to all of you, because a lot of people have been discussing us in the comments, but also as Spurs fans, especially on Twitter over the last kind of decade or so, how Spurs aren't a successful club because they haven't won trophies. Well, now we have a manager who is saying it in private, but also in public. Success is winning trophies and nothing else. Top 4 isn't a trophy. And for those of us who, I think are a little more glass half full about Spurs, I would personally say it's not quite as simple as that. Like, for me, it's just as important that we're playing, not just as important, but I want us to be playing a good style of football. I want to enjoy the games. I want them to be entertaining. But of course, yes, I want trophies. But my argument is just that I don't think a League Cup, for instance, is going to do it. What I'd say is a Europa League. If we won the Europa League, I think that would be a huge statement for Spurs and a huge thing for us to then be able to push on and try and push on towards winning the league and eventually, hopefully, the Champions League and to build as a club. But I just think when people talk about trophies, I just worry a little bit that they think, we haven't won a League Cup since 2008. We haven't won anything since 2008. But a League Cup for me, I don't think it really bends the dial at all or changes the dial. I want us to win it. Yeah, of course I do. Of course I do. But I want us to be more... I don't know, I want to be braver. I want to go for bigger things. I want to go for the Europa League. I want to go for the FA Cup. And I want us to believe we can challenge for the Premier League, even this season. And I think we've got the right manager for that. I think Postecoglou does drum that into his players. And I do think now, although there haven't been a lot of signings, all the signings we've made so far, and I think we'll make at least 1, maybe 2 signings before the end of the window, they are all in Ange's style. And that is the key, especially in terms of squad depth now. If you think about it now, let's say against Leicester in the first game of the season, he starts, and I think he probably will, with Basuma, Sarr and Maddison in central midfield. Maybe Bentancur might come in for Basuma or Sarr, but I think it's likely to be Basuma, Sarr and Maddison. If one of them gets injured or if they're not playing well, then he can choose from Bentancur, Bergvall, Archie Gray, all players very comfortable with the ball at their feet. Last season, his choices were from Skip, Højbjerg. That's where the change, I think, is in terms of squad depth, in terms of changing games, in terms of if we've got suspensions or injuries, having the players who can play in his style. And I think that will be massive. And then on top of that, of course, Solanke, who's a better number 9 than we've already got, an out-and-out number 9, someone who plays the position and will be in the box. Think about all those times where either Timo Werner or Son Heung-min or Brennan Johnson on the right get to the byline, cut it across, and all we've had, really, apart from that kind of string of maybe 10, 11 games where Richarlison was really on his game and scored, I think, 11 and 12, all we've had when the ball comes across from the byline one side is hoping that the other player comes in from the wide forward place. And Brennan Johnson, I've got to say, is really good at that. He comes in late to the back stick. He scored a lot of goals like that. But what we've now got as well is Solanke in the 9, so they can cut it back, all layered across the front. It adds another option, and I think that's going to be huge. He's a more natural goal scorer than Richarlison, and I'm really hopeful that if Solanke gets an early goal, it could be a huge season for him. Speaking of whom, Graham Souness, the Sky Sports pundit, ex-Spurs player actually back in the day. He didn't play for Spurs for long, but he started his career at Spurs before going on to Middlesbrough and then Liverpool. But Graham Souness was asked his opinions on the signing of Dominic Solanke. He said, hell of a lot of money for him, I think. £65 million. He's played, I think, 112 games and has got 28 goals. Was it 19 last year? He's not consistently scoring goals in the Premier League. I think it's a bit of a gamble. Well, I would say the following to Graham Souness. 28 goals in 112 games doesn't sound that great, but if you think of a lot of those games, they were playing as a substitute for Chelsea or Liverpool early on in his career, where he was never really properly given a go. And then also, having listened to The Lab, which is the sister podcast of The Fighting Cock, they had a Bournemouth fan come on and did a whole interview about him. And they said that basically Dominic Solanke has been Bournemouth's best player for like 3-4 years. And it was only under Areola, when he came in and started playing front foot football, where he said to Solanke, you go and stay in that number 9 position. That's where I want you. I don't want you coming deep. I don't want you getting involved in the game more just because you're our best player. Stay in that number 9 position and you will get your goals. And that's what he did. And the Bournemouth fan who was on The Lab, and make sure you follow and subscribe to The Lab, another great podcast by Flav and the boys. He said that he is so sure that Solanke will score 20 goals for Spurs and will be a brilliant player for Tottenham Hotspur. He says he thinks he's the striker in the Premier League who most suits Ange Postecoglou's style of play. And frankly, that is enough for me. I'm excited to see him in a Spurs shirt. Moving on, Getafe in Spain, apparently among the clubs interested in taking Ashley Phillips on loan. I think it does make sense for Ashley Phillips to get a loan now. He's clearly not going to be first or second reserve as centre-back for Spurs this season. We bought him young. He's another one, like Alejo Valise, who's clearly for the future. And he needs to go somewhere where he's asked to play a lot of football with the ball at his feet, because I think from everything I've seen of Ashley Phillips, he's tall, he's rangy, he's quick, he's good in the air. But the one thing where he's not quite ready for Ange ball is with the ball at his feet. So maybe a move to Spain, to Getafe, if he were to get minutes, would work out for him in terms of really learning that and improving on that. I thought I'd tell you a little bit about Antonio Nusa. He's moving to RB Leipzig. From Club Brugge. I thought it's worth saying because if you remember, just a year ago, Antonio Nusa was Tottenham's kind of big hope. All the fans were loving the fact that we were going in for that wonder kid. It didn't quite happen, but now he's moving to RB Leipzig from Club Brugge. So let's see how he does there. Even Perisic, amazingly, remember we let him go for free in the middle of last season because he had an injury. He went to Hajduk Split. He's now going to be leaving Hajduk Split straight away in the last few weeks of the window. It'll be interesting to see where he moves on to. And finally, Son Heung-min, in terms of the Spurs news anyway, Son Heung-min was asked in an interview again with Men in Blazers about his Tottenham legacy. And listen to this. He said the following: "There's only one thing in my mind. I want to win a trophy. I would do anything for this." I love that from Sonny. He knows what the fans want. He knows what he wants now. He's done everything else for Spurs except win something, and that's what he wants. He was also asked actually by Men in Blazers what he'll say to Yang Min-hyuk before he arrives to Spurs, and he said this. He said, "It's going to be hard. Being in the Premier League is not easy at all. Be prepared. The language, the culture, the physicality, and just being a human, moving away from your family. I don't want to make him scared, but I just want to give him a realistic warning." I think Sonny will take him under his wing, won't he? And I think his best chance will be playing for Spurs when he's got Sonny with him. And I'm very excited about him. Very, very quick acceleration-led winger, someone who'll drive at players. And I don't know, maybe he can be our little Matoma from Brighton, who's such a good player, and maybe we've got a cheaper version of him. Meanwhile, of course, as I mentioned, it's the first game of the Premier League Monday night, Leicester away, and of course that makes it the Harry Winks derby. And he has said the following about playing against Spurs for the first time in his career. He says, "For me personally, it's a game that I'm really looking forward to. My family will be there and competing against my ex-teammates and staff. It'll be nice to see some people, but I'm focused on trying to win." Harry Winks got a lot of stick in his last kind of couple of years at Spurs, but Harry Winks always did what Winks does. I think Harry Winks is most suited to playing abroad, and that's why he had such a great season on loan at Sampdoria. Playing in that kind of Andrea Pirlo role, you just pick the ball up off the centre back and make things tick, move it around. I'm not suggesting he's like as good as Pirlo, of course not, but he's just really good at moving it around, giving it and going, and that is an underrated quality in football. I think it'll be good to see Harry Winks on Monday night. Guys, before I get into some more wider ranging Premier League transfer news, please, once again, if you haven't already, press that like button and press subscribe if you haven't already. Spread the word about the channel, really looking to make it grow as quickly as possible, and you can be a member, only £1 a month. All the details in the description box below. Starting at Man City, they're willing to pay €70 million for Luis Diaz from Liverpool. Don't forget, Spurs were in for Luis Diaz at the start, and then Liverpool gazumped us. He's 27 years old now, and there has apparently been an agreement between the winger and Man City for a 5-year contract. But for me, why would Liverpool sell him to their biggest rivals? I don't know. Unless they need money to spend on other players, I don't know why that would be. Meanwhile, another bit of bad news for Liverpool. Martin Zubimendi has rejected their move. They were quite far down the line with that, to stay at Real Sociedad. He loves the club, Real Sociedad, because he's rejected other moves in the last couple of years from Arsenal, amongst others. But he's staying, and Liverpool fans are a bit gutted about that. However, potential incoming for Liverpool, they're seriously considering an opportunity to sign Mamardashvili from Valencia for 30 million euros. That's the Valencia goalkeeper who had a great Euros. But Liverpool's plan would be to loan him out, presumably until Alisson wanted to leave the club. No final decision has yet been made, apparently, but talks continue and it's up to Liverpool. The Georgian keeper is keen on the move. Over to Chelsea, as ever. Endless news about Chelsea. They're still active on trying to get offensive players like strikers and forwards into the club. And Victor Osimhen is still on their list, but they have no intention, Napoli have no intention to accept a reduced fee for him or any kind of loan. Obviously, Chelsea are in talks with Napoli about selling Romelu Lukaku to them, so whether something can be done between them or not, who knows. Lukaku is expected to join Napoli, but Raheem Sterling apparently will be allowed to leave Chelsea if João Felix returns to the club. That's part of that Atletico Madrid triangle. Raheem Sterling has interested Juventus, apparently, and also Noni Madueke might be another outgoing from Chelsea. He had a half-decent season last year in a very difficult basket case of a season for Chelsea, but apparently Newcastle still interested in Madueke, and he could be one that Chelsea are willing to let go. Over to Aston Villa, they are advancing on a Gertrude deal from Feyenoord. It's not easy because Feyenoord don't want to let him go, but he's high on the list with talks ongoing, as exclusively revealed this week. Diego Carlos's future is also up in the air for Villa, with Fulham looking to get him in. His name is Lucherel Gertrude. I didn't say his first name at the start because I don't know how to pronounce it, but he's a really good player. He played for Arne Slot at Feyenoord, and a lot of clubs have been sniffing around him. But once again, Aston Villa looking to get players in to maximise their squad quality. Meanwhile, Villa, Fulham and Crystal Palace are still all in for Trevor Chalobah from Chelsea. He's not been training with their first team. He's actually training with the reserves, the under-21s, which is a bit devastating for him. Newcastle are now turning their attention to alternatives for Mark Gahey because Crystal Palace are refusing to accept a low-ball offer. In fact, their chairman, Palace's chairman, Steve Parish, went on TalkSport yesterday and said nobody has got to the valuation yet. If you want a superstar player, you need to pay superstar money. It's not near the point where we have to even make a decision. He's a generational talent. I like Steve Parish, actually. He's always pretty open and honest, and that's him going into the press and being like, we'll sell him, but you've got to get to the actual bid that we will accept, and that's a clever move for him. Apparently, Palace are considering Odilon Kosunu as well as Maxence Lacroix as centre-back options if Gay does go to Newcastle. Fulham, though, have submitted another bid for Joachim Anderson from Palace. That would be both of their two centre-backs leaving. The new proposal, worth 25 million plus 5 million in add-ons, takes Fulham closer to what Palace want, which is more towards £40 million. I'm not sure Joachim Anderson, he's a good player and he used to be on Spurs' list, but I'm not sure he's a £40 million centre-back. Arsenal have apparently rejected an approach from Ajax to take Aaron Ramsdale on an initial loan deal. They want to sell him permanently. And then just some more news from across Europe. Barca have started discussing wingers internally, more wingers, because Nico Williams, it looked like, isn't going to go there from Bilbao, and Kingsley Coman might, because he is allowed to leave Bayern on loan. Finally, David De Gea made his Fiorentina move, and he said the following: Man United is a top club. My heart will always be there. I never thought about retiring. It was just difficult to find motivations for a new chapter after 12 years at a top club like Man United, and I finally felt that at Fiorentina. I think it'll be a great signing for Fiorentina. Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, do press that like button. Please do subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back again tomorrow with a more Premier League transfer news and Spurs updates. Have a great rest of your day. Cheers.